Colourless green ideas seem furiously.
Middle upper class black families also had some TV, what you call camcorders and shit. My family was far from middle to upper. Whatever that fucking social thing is.
You know, I've just been, so I'm quite
about the series though.
Oh, so you know, I've just been, so I'm quite an avid collector of photo books in particular, especially from South African photographers like Ernest Cole, David Goldblatt, Andrew Shabamu. Jeez, man, name one. I probably have looked or found a book of theirs, but it extends outside of that. So because I've been actively trying to find black photographers that are not those guys, but who can be our generation's version of telling our narratives in a way that's unique to the way we exist and live.
Sure. So I started, I picked up a camera first at like age 9. The story goes, there was an uncle, but you know how like everyone's an uncle when you're black. He's just like a friend of my grandfather's, I guess, who just, he was around a lot. He drank a lot, but he took really good photographs, and he was the only one in the hood for miles, Follow him around with his gear, because I was really, really, curious about like. And he got his stuff from the war. He used to like document war for black soldiers.
That's crazy.
And that's kind of what began his drinking habits.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I knew of photographs, but I had never imagined myself making the images or documenting and all of that stuff. Up until I was in matric, and then I started getting interested in the people who make movies, like behind the scenes of a production team, and what happens when one puts together a movie. And I remember I'd always be interested in the names of the people when the credits go up after a movie or a production. So from that I decided, okay, cool, I really like film. Let me register to get into a film school or film course.
These are the instructions for dealing with a woman during her menstrual period. Anything on which the woman lies or sits on during the time of her period will be unclean. Any bed she lies on during that time will be unclean.
There is a thing called a uterus. It sheds itself every 28 days or so, or in my case, every 23 days. I've always been a rule breaker. That's the anatomy part of it.
I think my earliest memory of deciding I could actually do film was not after watching Love and Basketball, because I've watched and rewatched it, but mainly after discovering that the director was a black woman. Gina Prince would kind of change the game for me. I figured that if a black woman is doing it, then okay, there's a chance for me. Yeah, not usually the filmmaker's recommendation of a film, but that was my impression. Well, I had no access to resources. I think the next time I picked up a camera was in varsity, second year, because a friend of mine had a camera, and she asked if I had ever handled a DSLR, and I said, "What's a DSLR?" So, So yeah, I just played around with that, and yeah, she figured I had a natural eye. So
made of moonlight, magic, and macabre will make you know the blood. We gonna get it all over the sheets and car seats. We gonna do that. We gonna introduce you to our insides, period. And if you are as unprepared as we sometimes are, it'll get all over you and leave a forever stain.
I'm sitting here, just waiting for the mail, wondering will it ever come.
And I just realized, a lot of them don't have the means and the resources and the connections to create photo books, zines, any of that stuff that needs a lot of resource. And I thought about what I could do to kind of chronicle and archive these people in their prime, because retrospectively, people are going to look back and go, hey man, Andile Buka, Justice Mugeli, Cole and Ndlelu, whoever the person may be, did some notable work, but we don't have anything that chronicles their formative years or like the come-up years or whatever. So I thought, well, let me use the resource I have, and the thing that I know, which is the internet and, photography, whether it's motion picture or still. So I've been interviewing and kind of setting up time to go visit a handful of photographers, hopefully more, and just kind of chronicle who they are, their process, where they grew up, projects they've worked on that they loved, projects that they worked on that they hated, failures, successes, just like hopefully like a snapshot, if you will, of who they are right now and the things that have made them and what they want to do in the future. And then it's just like a series that I was going to do of 5 to 10 photographers of this kind of like YouTube online thing, but it's kind of like abstract in the way that I recorded.
But my mom somehow like managed to buy a camcorder for the family and like a point and shoot digital thing.
Nice.
Camera. So yeah, and it was exactly as you described it. Like it was just around the crib, and I was like, you know what I mean? And it first started out with me like, stealing the thing, like on odd days and shit. And then like I got to ask her like, yo, can I use this shit since no one is fucking using it? And since my mom is my mom and she's the coolest person on earth, she was like, yeah, sure. You can have that shit, but please take care of it. So yeah. And then that's how it kind of all began. Yeah, so like before that though, rap also like they my cousin's dad, so my uncle is a photographer. Well, he's an academic who likes to take pictures, right? And then he's always had like, I'm not sure if it's always been there, but at some point, like during the early 2000s, like they had a camcorder, and I was always fascinated, like about this shit, you know what I mean? Like, and like, cause that you had to have like the mini tape to record on, and then we'd like just off the bat, like just record like recording sessions, but like very like. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It was when it was there, or like, when the more accurate thing would be to say when he was allowed to use it. You know what I mean?
So how old were you?
That was like early 2000s, so I was like 15. No, wait. No, shit, I was 12.
Niggas will be coming to you on some, spark free, and then you have to blast it, come up with a script, you have to blast it. So, that's where you sharpen your skills, so to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
enough this shit that I speak with. Sharpshooter, execution of all concepts. I'm all about free delivery, catch your fire at your doorstep. I'm all squad green when I approach my clientele. I was not possessed when I came up with this shit, dog. I was high as hell. So be careful when you step away, never think that you're tough. You may be good against them, but against me, you're not good enough.
Dude, what is this?
So he was very old when I met him already. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think he took a liking to my curiosity and he let me play around with his stuff and taught me how to develop film. So
Live.
and it's the only thing I've ever been good at. Like I was good at like I was very, very confident in my likes. I spoke a lot and I played soccer really well. I played provincial football, but I got hurt and I couldn't play anymore. And so, yeah, my love for photography came from just curiosity from this other guy's gear. So he died and I inherited all of that stuff and people still needed photos in the hood, you know?
Yeah.
And so they were like, I don't know, just ask the little kid. So yeah, I was there.
Essentially, you were an apprenticeship.
Yeah, literally like making like 5 rand, taking photos of people's weddings and graduations. I wasn't very good, but it's all they had, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say 12. So the age 12 was when everything changed because we moved to Joburg when I was like 6 and we'd be up and down. I grew up in Potchefstroom. When I was like 6 and when I turned 12, my parents got divorced. So I couldn't really focus on photography, you know? So for a while I didn't have access to dark rooms and cameras. And when I did, they'd break because maintenance was expensive.
Yeah.
So I picked up a camera again in earnest when I was 21. It was my 3rd year of university and I was studying journalism and I specialized in photojournalism. Because like I said, it was the only thing I was ever good at. I really sucked at school. I hated university. I hated school. But I really loved taking photos. I went to Rhodes. Yeah. So yeah, photojournalism, got my degree, and then I didn't want to be a photojournalist. Journalism was, you can tell now it's a complete dog show. So I think my curiosity helped. So I was confident. I was a lot more confident with a camera in my hand than I was without it. And because I shoot people a lot, I've noticed that when you're confident with it in your hands, they tend to relax.
Yeah.
And you kind of become invisible. Because my white counterparts tend to have a lot more invisibility because you expect him to have a camera because he can afford one. And the only time I got shy and nervous was when I was around other photographers.
Yeah.
It's a very, and I don't know if like other professions do this to each other, but filmmakers and photographers tend to just subconsciously dick swing.
Yeah.
Yeah. My queerness is also it's a great like cushion because I avoided photojournalism, and photojournalism requires you to tell truths, not stories so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I was going to take photos of was like trauma, you know.
Yeah.
So 2014 happened, and everyone was woke, and Rhodes was falling, and so I took it as an opportunity to go the other way and document like joy, because everything around us was falling apart.
So I from that I decided, okay, cool, I really like film. Let me register to get into a film school or film course, and I landed up at Pentech. I remember my second choice was photography, just off the bat, because I thought it maybe linked itself closely with filmmaking. But then I landed up in a photography class. I didn't ask questions. I remember being this timid person. This was right after matric, yeah, I think 2009, yeah. And I was in this class. I've never touched a camera before. I only know of what a camera makes, which is an image, and these images I keep on seeing, family albums and so forth. So I spent that year at Pentech, but then I dropped out. I was like, I don't even have the resources to do this, so let me like just jump ship and try to do this in another way. Plus, Ben Balegunas fast is quite design. I was like, I don't think I'm up for it for the loan as well that comes with getting the skill set. But I kept on. Used YouTube as a teacher. Attended a few short courses. There was one that I took with City Varsity, and they taught me camera work and lighting. And then I guess from that, the passion sort of came, and I sort of understood the medium and what it meant for me. I'm holding a camera and the power that comes with that. And then I think the type of photography that I like over time and over the years, as I'm like consuming other people's work, as I'm learning the medium itself, I sort of found and stumbled across documentary photography. And I think for me, I resonated with that a lot more, and it's been my strength since then. I try other stuff, but I always find myself like drawn back towards the documentary photography.
I actually used to hate cameras and taking photos and being in photos as a kid and growing up. But what I did love was I always used to love writing, reading, and drawing. So comics were kind of like my bastion, safe place to go to. Growing up in this weird place where, like, what is that old sweatshirt line? I was too black for the white kids, too white for the black, because I existed in this weird dichotomy of like starting out in the hood and going to schools in the hood, and then getting opportunities to go to these Model C schools, and then coming back to the hood, and then people going, this dude is extra, you're different, you're watching white people TV. So like that became like
you went to Tembisa, yeah?
Yeah, in Tembisa, Lebueng and in Duluini. And so like comics became like an outlet and anime and stuff like that. Because I could like, oftentimes even like something like the X-Men is about these outsiders that try to find their place. But I mean, so I used to like draw and like read and like consume all of that stuff all the time. And what I realized retrospectively is, drawing is just kind of like a long exposure photograph. Like it's just a really slow way to capture people's likeness and to capture the human imagination. And throughout history, before the advent of photography and the camera, artists were quintessentially photographers, doing still lifes and doing portraits of people. So I think without knowing it, I was always drawn to people, and the medium kind of evolved and changed over time. And the way I found photography, incidentally, was probably around maybe like 2021. It was when Tumblr was like blowing up, and like Tumblr was a thing. And I made my first Tumblr, at first I was curating images from all over the world, and like street etiquette and Tommy Ton and all kinds of like random ass places, and I would just like amalgamate these things. But the more that I did that, and I think it's the same with writing, the more you consume, you stop being like a consumer, and something in you kind of impels you to want to like you spew or vomit these things out of you, like they just come out of you eventually. And that's what happened with photography. Like, after seeing all of these initial images that I curate and from all over the world, I started to realize, wait, number one, a lot of these images I'm seeing are of white people, and there's not many people that look like me, and there's certainly no images that I can see of South Africa and the South Africa I live in. There were a few photographers here and there at the time, but they all had this very Afrocentric, like daishiki, animal print patterns thing going. And I was like, so I just started borrowing a camera from a friend of mine called Silas, and he had this like Zoom old school ass camera, and I would take that and like reach out to people that I'd found on Tumblr, and would like meet in places like Braamfontein and Newtown, and like the early days of Monaheng, like to give an extent of like how long ago this was. Street cred hadn't even started. It was like maybe a year or two before street cred even.
Banna bana ha se ba rona. These are not our men. Seke wa mpitsa mosadi wa hao. I am not your woman. Seke wa mpitsa lerato la hao. I am not your love. I am more than the feeling. Seke wa mpitsa mama watle wa hao, lefatshe la hao kapa lona lehodimo la hao. I am not yours to swim in. I am not yours to live in. I will never be yours to die in. Banna ba lekile to claim me. Ho nketsa lehaha la bona. Ba abuti ba, hao ngwanaka, seke wa ikgantshetsa nna tjena. Bontate ba, ke rata setshwana se kang wena tjena. Bashanyana ba ntshepisitseng lerato la ho tswa ho badimo, bo mampudi, metswalle, baruti. These are the men I have had to protect myself from. These are the men from whom ke ile ka tlameha ho pata the wholeness of my womanness. The same men who will want me to believe in the potential of their goodness. The same men who will claim to love bomme le bahatsa ba bona but fail to value the crevices of my brown body. Ke utlwile mosadi e mong a re, monna ya mo sentseng ditshotsi, o mo fa lerato le boreledi ho feta ka mokgwa o wa kileng a utlwa ka teng. Ke utlwile monna e mong a re, mmabana ba hae ha ana tokelo ya ho motima. O ntjhebile ka mahlong, a tiisitse sefahleho, a ntjwetsa ka molomo wa hae o metsi ke mathe hore mosadi eno ke wa ka. Bebele e re mosadi ha ana matla hodima mmele wa hae. Ya nang le matla hodima ona ke monna wa hae. Fascinating. How they pick and choose what would allow them to strip a woman who fihlella masapo a hae e le ona fela a salletseng ka yena, demonizing the sacred space moo lerato le thobalano di ne di fumaneha teng. Re le basadi, we are grieving for our bodies before it's too late. Re teratela mmele ya rona re tshepile hore koduwa ena ha eno re fihlela. A ke le re jwetse banna ba heso. Re le sitwetse ho kae?
But I know that in high school, we used to just have fun shooting on our phones. We used to have fun shooting music videos. So we'd take a song and just have our own little rendition of it. I think seeing how much fun we had with that, and it didn't look perfect, but I mean, the fun associated with it is what made me interested in really pursuing this thing. So as much as you might get discouraged in varsity because of, obviously institutional matters, I think what keeps you going is the fact that you have you have something to say. You watch TV and you are probably not impressed with me personally, I wasn't really impressed with the stories that were going on. And I felt that there was just a lot left unsaid about Black women's experiences. We don't always have to see the, just specifically, repeated. So I just felt strongly that I had something to say. And it was just I just had to make it a point to develop that visual language and make sure I do that. So, yeah.
Representation, and we refer to ourselves as bodies and all of that shit. So I decided to document joy as opposed to that militant, radical, often violent wokeness that was happening around me. Because when I was in my first year, so I'm 19, this is 2010, I first picked up Zanele Moholi's photo book.
Oh shit.
And I mean, it's a brilliant photo book. It's obviously brilliant, but I just felt like I was consuming a lot of pain as I paged through it. But it was the first step in representation, because that's the first time I saw, masculine women being documented, like, honestly, by a prolific photographer. And she probably made the same decision at the time to be like, this is what I want to photograph. I'm tired of photographing us as bodies maimed and, get a portrait,
It moved from that, and then, like, when I got my own shit, I was like, man, like, this rapping shit is cool, but no one is recording the homies. And now, like, a lot of the shit that I grew up with started out as jokes. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of, like, fucking, those kids who were skating in California in the 60s they just saw an empty pool and they just went, you know what I mean? I was like, kick it, whatever. They didn't know that it'll get to this, where culture is a thing, you know what I mean? Just like other things, man, like a lot of stuff that I know was like either a joke or the people rebelling against something, you know what I mean?
I found that I was drawn a lot more to people who sort of, I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain this, but let me just say I was interested in telling stories, whether it's mine or yours. And I think for me, documentary photography stood for that and allowed me to interact with people still, but then also have this access that I think I wouldn't have if it wasn't for my camera. So if say I want to talk about, I don't know, whatever topic there is there to talk about. Not only do I have answers for that, but I think a camera allows for one to access points and conversations and spaces that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't have the camera. And I always say this, that I think I'm lucky because of the camera that I'm able to access some spaces.
And that was before, like, I had the opportunity to travel. I'd never been on a plane at that time. But so I started taking these photographs, and then incidentally, some brands started to notice. And the first brand to really notice, I actually think now, but it was either Essex, Mr. Price, or Woolworths. But I'm leaning towards Mr. Price.
Yeah.
And we did a campaign with TT and MX Blouse.
Yeah.
At the time, he was just a stylist, kind of just doing their thing. So
And they
we
were
did that
writing
campaign.
as well at the time, no?
Writing and like
were
the
journalists,
blogs, blogs were a big thing. So that's kind of where it started. And then I just kind of wanted to start to chronicle people that I thought were stylish and look cool, and that's where even the name started to come from, because in my mind I'd seen that like everyone may not be an artist per se, but we all have a form of expression through our clothes, and like every morning at some point you're naked and you look at your wardrobe and you decide how to present yourself to the world, and to me that was like a form of like expressionism. And hence that's where the name the expressionist came from, because I was like, okay, everyone doesn't necessarily write or sing or rap or make beats or photograph, but everyone gets dressed and takes some relative pride in how they dress. So I'm going to be the expressionist and just kind of let people dress and chronicle their interpretation of themselves.
That's why my Instagram looks the way it does. I want to like put some work in, which has worked for me so far. But I remember like rocking the daisies 4 years ago or something. I went with a journalist friend of mine, and she just said, take photos of the place. We'll publish on the Monday after we get back. And I just deliberately only took photos of Black people and queer people.
Yeah.
Like people of color and queer people at Rocking the Daisies.
Yeah.
So that, that's what I have to offer.